Hi and welcome to another Prokraft video. Today we're going to have a look at salt and pepper kits. We sell a 10-inch pepper kit, which is that one there. So I'll try and get close to the camera so you can see it okay. And we also sell a set of 8-inch which has salt and pepper kit in it. As you can see, there's 2 shafts, 2 grinders and whatever in there. Before I tell you how I go about doing salt and pepper kits, and what I must say is I think a lot of people, as I did when I first did one, look at them and think they look really complicated and difficult. So what I'm going to try and do, as well as explaining how our kit works and how it's slightly different to many others on the market, is dispel any fears you might have about actually turning one, because it's a really satisfying project to do. It's not that difficult. It's just when you open the bag you see lots of parts and lots of measurements, but as we run through you'll see how logical it actually is to do. So we're going to start off, and what I'm going to turn today is a 10-inch pepper mill kit. What you get with our kits is a shaft like so, and amazingly it's got a P on the end of it, not a garden P, a letter P. Clearly for pepper. There is that section there, is, if the camera can pick that up, there we go, that is a spring retainer. Now this little bit of metal is what makes our kit different to some, and this is what makes it what we call an easy fit kit. What this little bit does is it means you have one central hole to drill in one size. Now there are others on the market that have something similar to that. If the camera can pick that up, it's a fine part, but what it means is, as well as drilling a 25mm central hole, is you have to then drill a slightly larger hole to this depth and fit this end in, and it's just an awful lot trickier to do than with the little metal part that we have. The other important part about our kits is this part here, and this is the grinder, which I will take out of the packet so you can see it a little bit better, and we use a ceramic grinder in ours. Now there are 3 different types of grinders that can be used in salt and pepper mills. Ours is ceramic. The other type you can get is metal. Metal is suitable for pepper and not suitable for salt, because salt will erode the metal. And the third type you can get is plastic. Plastic is not strong enough to grind pepper, only strong enough to grind salt, but being plastic, it's easily damaged, and personally I would question the longevity of plastic parts in a grinder. So hence we use these parts here, which we believe are a really good quality grinder parts. That's the grinder housing, and that's the actual grinder there, and that fits in there like so, but you'll see how it slots in together as we go on. The other thing that we supply with our kits is a good old-fashioned fitting guide in paper form. We will put one on the website so you can download it, but we always feel you're going to be in a workshop, you need a bit of paper to refer to, because you won't have a computer, hopefully not, otherwise it's going to get covered in dust and all manner of other horrible things. So we put a papery bit in which tells you the dimensions that you need to follow. So let's have a look at how to put this 10-inch pepper mill kit together. As well as the kit itself, you're also going to need obviously a wood blank, a pencil, a ruler, that goes without saying, a Jacob's chuck, a 25mm auger bit or any 25mm bit for the centre core, a 7mm drill bit, a small Phillips screwdriver, and I also use this little awl. We sell these because they're tiny screws, they need a tiny awl, not a huge great big piece of equipment. So we're going to mount this on the lathe, and we'll see how the project comes along. Once we've got our stock mounted in the lathe, the first thing we're going to do is drill a 7mm hole through this end. This is going to be the top of the pepper mill, and it can be whatever size you want. You can have a very small top and a longer bottom, or a very big top and a shorter bottom. Obviously the smaller the bottom section, the less pepper it will actually hold. But as long as the overall length is correct, you can make it in whatever proportions that you like. So we're now going to drill a 7mm hole, at least the depth that you want the top, and a little bit into the bottom. So just as a mark, so when we get to the bottom we've got a central point to carry on. Now I've turned the stock round, I'm going to measure and mark for my top. Now my top I'm going to make 40mm long, so I'm going to put a mark at 40mm. I'm then going to measure another 10mm and put a mark there, and that's because that will be the top section, and this bit here, which we're going to cut down to 25mm, is going to be the small tenon that fits in the top of the pepper mill kit when it comes to fitting it together. So I now have my 25mm tenon, and this is going to be the top of my pepper pot. So I'm now going to start to shape this. Having roughly shaped the top part, and this is just an ad hoc design, I'm now going to remove the top section from the main body. This leaves us with the rough turned top section with a 25mm or just under 25mm tenon, which is ready to put in the top of the project. This will finish later mounting between centres. So I've got my 25mm auger bit here, and what I'm going to do is just loosen this bit off in here and just line up my drill bit to make sure that it's going to go in centrally. Our instructions tell us that we're looking for 240mm. We've already cut the top section, which is 40mm high plus a tenon section. Don't include the tenon section in the measurement. It's the total project height that we're looking at here. So we're looking for 240mm less 40, so that means we've got to drill at least 200mm through the centre of the project. The way I'm going to make sure that I get at least 200mm through the centre is to actually measure the auger bit, see where 20cm is. That's about 21. I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on the top of there, and that's going to give me an indicator that I've got far enough through. So we've now got 25mm hole. What we now need to do is to put the recess in the bottom for this part here, and this is 38mm section that we need to cut out for this. On the instructions it says 10mm deep. It can be any depth as long as that is fully enclosed, but 10mm just makes it easy to calculate how long the project's got to be. I'm now going to explain to you the difference between the two parts that I mentioned earlier. This is our spring retainer, and as you will see, I haven't actually cleared out the inside of this hole, but our spring retainer slots in there nice and easy. That's one single hole, 25mm diameter. This part, or something similar to that, just doesn't fit in there. So as well as cutting out this section for the bottom, you're then going to have to cut another section in there to the correct depth, and to be honest, it's just fiddly and a little bit difficult. Again, that's why we stick with these little metal parts. I've had a little clean up in here. Always double check that this plate fits properly in the bottom there, which it does in this case. So now what we're going to do is actually measure the project. Now this is the critical part. As we see here, we've got 240 mils. That 240 mils is to the inside of that part that we've just turned, not the end of the project. So we've got 10 millimeters, so we've got 240 plus 10, that's 250 millimeters we should have from one end of the project to the other end of the project, and that's really important. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop the top section on there, hold my tape measure on. I'm going to do it by eye. 250 millimeters. 250 millimeters takes us to there. Just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to go an extra 5 or 6 millimeters, because at the end of the day, if it's too long you can cut it down, if it's too short you've had it, unfortunately. So we've got the measurement for our project to 250 millimeters, because it's the 240 on the plan plus the 10mm tenon section we took out the bottom, and I've added just a couple of millimeters on the top just for good measure. So I'm just going to mark on here where we're going to take the project off. Having got the right length, I recommend that you then take the bottom section completely off its original block and remount it between centres. This makes sure that you're turning accurately with the hole that you cut earlier. I've just used a scrap block in the end here, but you may have your own drive and a live tailstock at this end. So we're now just going to finish the shaping and finishing of the bottom section. So we've finished sanding, and I actually haven't put a sheen finish on that. I've just put some sealer on it, and I'm just going to leave it as that, so it has like a satin finish to it. So as you can see, it makes quite a nice large project, this. We're now just going to check the fit with the main body and the top before we finish the top. So to check the fit, we've got the centre rod. That's going to have the grinder attachment on it, and then the grinder housing, and we're going to push that up through the bottom of the project there, and you'll find that's quite a nice good fit. We're going to pop the top on and just see how much thread we have left sticking out the top, and as you can see, that's about right. What I need to be able to do is to close that thread tight and have the grinder pull nice and tight on the bottom. That's so we can get a nice fine grind in that section. But in actual fact, you can see how long the thread is there and how much is sticking out the top, and this is where we do the final adjustments just by finishing this top section. If we need to reduce that in any length, and we can take a couple of mils off there without any problem at all, but we must make sure that we can pull that bottom section there up tight, otherwise you'll just get huge grains of pepper as and when it comes to grinding it. Now I'm not too happy about the shape of this, so I am going to try and reshape that and trim it just a fraction, and we'll do that now, finish it off, and then we'll look at putting the project all together and screwing it so it makes one nice kit. So I've just about finished the top section. It's got to have some sealer on there. I've got the top bit there to around about 11 millimeters, which is the width of the top pepper part that screws onto the very top of the kit. So we'll just put a little bit of sealer on that, and then we'll deal with putting the whole project together. So we've got our bottom section of the mill, our top section of the mill that we've turned, and all the parts. So we're going to start off with the centre rod. On that goes the grinder, followed by the grinder housing, followed by the spring, followed by the spring retainer, which goes in that way up, and that whole section slots into the bottom of the peppermill kit, like so. It is quite a nice tight fit, and that's exactly how it should be. The next thing we need to do is to add this little ring which goes on top there, and that has some cutouts for the screws, and the screws will screw in like so. I'm not sure if you can quite see that on the camera, but we're going to just use the awl just to mark that point there, and on the other side to mark that point there. And I'm not sure if you can quite see on there the two little points that I've got there. Those are ready to be drilled, so we've got a pilot hole to screw the bottom section in. And similarly, we need to put the drive plate onto the top of this section here, which goes on there. And I'll then be able to make, again, two small pilot, just little marks on the top there, so I can see where I want to drill. Take that out, and again you can see I've got two little marks there. Let's make those a little bit clearer. So we're ready for the final assembly now. I've been over to the pillar drill and I've drilled two little pilot holes in there, and I've drilled two little pilot holes in there, and I drilled 2mm pilot holes. So we're just going to run over the assembly again. So we've got the main shaft, followed by the grinder, followed by the grinder housing, making sure it's that way up because this section slots into the main body, followed by the spring, followed by the spring retainer section that way up because that also slides into the main part of the body. So we will slot that in, make sure that the metal part, the little feet on the bottom of it, don't go over your screw holes, and that the two little cutouts on the grinder housing do fall over the two little screw holes. And just push them in there. Hopefully you might be able to, I'm not sure whether the camera will quite pick that up. You then have this bottom section. Now there's one side is flat and the other side has a slight rebate. The slight rebate side goes innermost, so you're left with the flat side facing you. And again, pop that on there, and we're now ready to pop our screws in. And this is where this little awl comes in handy again, just to reline those screw holes up. And we pop a screw in there. Once the bottom section is screwed in and the top section drive plate is screwed in, the unit's ready to be assembled like so. You may have to give a little bit of a push on there, and we can now thread the top on there. And again, I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up, but as I adjust the knob, it will pull the grinder in and release it, so we can adjust the grind. And there we have a slightly unusual design, I must confess, but there would be no point in turning a traditional one because they're made by the thousands in China. A 10-inch peppermill kit. And just to recap, the most important thing with all of this, A, is to make sure you turn between centres to get it all centred, and B, just the length of the whole project and it's really not too difficult. A great fun project to do, and you get a really nice finished product at the end of it, and what's more, it's actually useful. Right, I've been to the house, got a few peppercorns, so here we'll try. I think might slightly finer grind. There we go. There it is. Hopefully you can see that pepper coming out of there, and the grind is adjusted by loosening and tightening the knob on the top, which releases the grinder in and out of the housing down the bottom there. So there we have a rather unusual design, admittedly, of pepper kit. Hopefully that video has been useful. I have to confess that the blank I've used here is a little narrower than I would have liked, but it is the only one that I had. I had some sycamore earlier, unfortunately it was absolutely full of woodworm. So if you've got any questions, as always, feel free to drop us an email. We're more than happy to help in any way that we can. If you've got any questions or want any tips or advice on how to fit any of our kits, please let us know. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye bye.